The station had been built to watch stars die, not to shelter the things that survived them. Jonah Reed knew that the moment he stepped into the containment bay and felt the air thicken, heavy with antiseptic and fear. The walls curved inward, deliberately smooth, designed to leave nowhere for the eye to rest and nowhere for a prisoner to hide. At the center of the chamber stood the reason the station had gone silent 3 days earlier. The alien was taller than Jonah had expected and somehow smaller at the same time, folded inward as if trying to reduce himself. His body was a study in asymmetry, limbs set at uneven angles, skin ridged and scarred in ways that suggested deliberate alteration rather than injury. One arm ended in a cluster of jointed digits, too many to count at a glance, while the other was thin and vestigial, bound close to his torso. His face, if it could be called that, was a narrow plane of hardened flesh broken by eyes that did not match in size or placement. Nothing about him followed the patterns Jonah's mind instinctively searched for. The alien did not move when Jonah entered. He simply watched, eyes fixed, unblinking. Jonah paused at the threshold, not because he felt fear, but because training demanded a moment of assessment. Heart rate steady. No visible weapons. No immediate aggression. He took one step forward, then another, boots echoing softly against the deck. Behind the reinforced glass, a pair of station observers held their breath. Jonah could feel their expectation like pressure between his shoulder blades. They were waiting for something, revulsion, recoil, the instinctive tightening of the jaw that came when the brain rejected what the eyes were showing it. It never came. Jonah stopped a respectful distance away and inclined his head, a habit picked up during a dozen off-world assignments where no one could agree on what counted as polite. "I'm Jonah Reed," he said evenly. "Medical and recovery liaison. You're safe here." The alien's throat flexed. The sound that came out was low and strained, as if unused. "You are close," he said, words shaped carefully in halting galactic standard. "Most do not approach." "There's no reason not to," Jonah replied. His gaze moved with quiet efficiency, cataloging injuries, noting the unnatural tension in the alien's posture. Pain lived in that body, not as an emergency, but as a constant companion. The alien's eyes narrowed, confusion rippling through him. "You see me?" Jonah nodded. That's usually how conversations work. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The alien's breathing grew uneven, a subtle tremor running through the ridged plates of his chest. Jonah recognized it instantly. He had seen the same thing in human survivors pulled from wreckage or battlefields, anticipation of rejection, bracing for the moment kindness turned conditional. "You are not reacting," the alien said at last. "I am," Jonah answered. "I'm listening." That seemed to unbalance him more than disgust would have. His upper limbs shifted, one claw scraping faintly against the deck, as if he had forgotten how to stand without restraint. Others stare. Or they turn away. Or they harden themselves before speaking to me. Jonah thought of mirrors cracked by explosions, of faces rebuilt by surgeons who could only do so much. He thought of his own reflection after the war, eyes older than the rest of him. "That sounds exhausting," he said. The alien studied him, searching for mockery that never arrived. "You do not ask what I am." "You'll tell me when you're ready," Jonah said. "Right now, you look like you've been standing too long." He set the medical kit down slowly, deliberately keeping his movements predictable. When he knelt, he did so at an angle that kept him within the alien's field of view, a small courtesy learned the hard way. "May I?" The alien hesitated, then inclined his head by a fraction. Consent tentative but real. Jonah worked in silence, scanning, patching superficial damage, easing the worst of the strain. The alien flinched once, sharply, when Jonah's fingers brushed a seam of scar tissue that pulsed faintly with unnatural energy. Jonah adjusted immediately, murmuring a quiet apology. The alien stared at him as if the word itself were a revelation. "You are not repulsed," the alien said again, softer now. Jonah considered the question seriously. "I've seen worse," he said, then added. "And better. Neither of those things decide how I treat someone." The alien's shoulders sagged, tension bleeding out of him in a way that looked dangerously close to collapse. "My form is considered a failure," he said. "A warning." Jonah finished securing the final band and leaned back on his heels. "Looks more like the result of a lot of surviving." Something passed through the alien's eyes, shock, then something like grief. He turned his gaze downward, claws curling inward. "If that were true," he said quietly, "then everything I was taught is wrong." Jonah stood, offering a hand without thinking, then paused and lowered it slightly, letting the alien decide. After a heartbeat, one uneven limb reached out and rested briefly against Jonah's forearm, the touch light but deliberate. "I don't know much about what you were taught," Jonah said, "but I know this station doesn't make judgments based on appearances. Not anymore." The alien withdrew his hand, posture straighter now, as if a weight had shifted inside him. "Then you are dangerous," he said, not accusingly. Jonah allowed himself a faint smile. "People say that about us sometimes." Alarms did not sound. Orders did not come crackling over the intercom. The moment passed quietly, which somehow made it more significant. The alien lifted his gaze again, and this time there was something new there, curiosity edged with a fragile hope. "You did not flinch," he said. Jonah met his eyes, steady and unguarded. "I don't think I ever planned to." Outside the chamber, unseen observers began to realize that whatever this encounter was becoming, it was already far beyond their control. Time settled differently after that. Jonah returned to the containment bay at regular intervals, not because protocol demanded it, but because the alien no longer tensed when he heard Jonah's footsteps. The station's lights dimmed and brightened in slow cycles meant to comfort humans, and though the alien did not sleep, he began to orient himself by those rhythms. He stood less rigidly now, weight distributed instead of locked, as if he were learning how much space he was allowed to occupy. "You are consistent," the alien observed during Jonah's third visit. "That is unusual." Jonah checked the scanner's readout and adjusted a dosage. "Consistency keeps people alive," he said. "Uncertainty usually doesn't." The alien considered this. "In my culture, uncertainty is deliberate." Jonah glanced up. "How so?" "It reminds us of our place," the alien replied. "Those whose forms inspire discomfort are kept uncertain about safety, about status, about whether the next interaction will be their last." Jonah absorbed that without comment. He had heard variations of the same philosophy from human mouths, dressed up in different language. "Does it work?" he asked finally. The alien's eyes flicked toward the observation glass, then back. "It maintains order," he said. "At a cost." Jonah nodded once. "It always does." Silence returned, but it was no longer empty. The alien watched Jonah work, tracking each motion with unnerving focus. "You carry damage," he said suddenly. Jonah stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Everyone does." "No," the alien said. "I mean visibly. Beneath your skin. Your bones were broken and reset." Jonah flexed his left hand, feeling the familiar ache along the knuckles. "Occupational hazard." "You do not hide it," the alien said. "There's no point," Jonah replied. "It happened." The alien tilted his head, plates along his neck shifting. "If I could have hidden what was done to me, I would have been permitted a different existence." Jonah set the scanner aside. "You didn't choose this body," he said. The alien hesitated. "Not entirely." That answer lingered between them, heavy with implication. Jonah didn't press. He had learned long ago that people revealed the truth at their own pace, or not at all. On his next visit, the alien was waiting for him closer to the center of the chamber. "I wish to test something," he said. Jonah stopped. "All right." Slowly, deliberately, the alien shifted his stance and unfurled the cluster of digits on his larger limb. The movement exposed a section of his torso Jonah had not yet seen, where the rich skin gave way to something raw, threaded with faintly glowing lines that pulsed in irregular patterns. The air hummed, a low vibration Jonah felt in his teeth. "This is usually when they step back," the alien said. "Or raise weapons." Jonah didn't move. He adjusted his footing only to keep his balance as the hum intensified, eyes narrowing slightly as he studied the energy flow. Does it hurt? He asked. The alien froze. That is not the question they ask. It should be, Jonah said. He stepped closer, close enough that the warmth from the alien's body brushed his sleeves. He did not reach out, but his presence was unmistakable. That kind of output looks unstable. The glow faltered. The alien's limb trembled, then folded back against his body. The hum died away, leaving a ringing quiet behind it. You still did not recoil, he said, voice unsteady. Jonah exhaled slowly. I've learned the difference between something that looks dangerous and something that is suffering. The alien's shoulders slumped. He lowered himself until he was seated on the deck, movements awkward but no longer frantic. If what you say is true, he said, then humans are incompatible with the wider galactic order. Jonah crouched across from him. That wouldn't be the first time we've heard that. You do not rank worth by form, the alien continued. You do not assign shame to survival. We're not perfect at it, Jonah said. But we try. Mostly because we've been on the wrong end of those judgments ourselves. The alien looked at him for a long time. I was told humans were unpredictable, he said. Violent. Jonah gave a small, humorless smile. Sometimes. Usually, when someone decides we're less than what we are. The alien's gaze dropped to his own twisted limbs. Then what am I? He asked quietly. In your estimation? Jonah didn't answer immediately. He chose his words with care. You're someone who's been shaped by a system that didn't care if you broke as long as it held. The alien closed his eyes, a gesture Jonah recognized now. When he opened them again, something had shifted. The defensiveness was still there, but beneath it lay resolve. There are truths about my existence, he said, that are not meant to be known by outsiders. Jonah inclined his head. You don't owe me those. No, the alien agreed. But you may be the first being who could hear them without revulsion. A distant vibration rippled through the station, subtle but unmistakable. Jonah's wrist console chimed softly with an incoming alert he did not yet check. The alien felt it too. He straightened, tension returning, sharper now because it was purposeful. If they come, he said, your reaction will be tested again. Jonah finally glanced at the console, then back at the alien. So will yours. The alien studied him, then nodded once. Then listen carefully, he said. What you see is not my true form. It is a role, and it was chosen. The words settled like a fracture line, quiet but irreversible, and Jonah knew the next conversation would change more than just the fate of the being in front of him. The alien did not speak at first. He drew one uneven limb across his torso, a protective gesture that looked practiced, almost ceremonial. Jonah waited, aware that whatever came next would not fit neatly into a report or a protocol. My species values symmetry, the alien said at last. Balance of form, harmony of structure. To us, it signifies moral worth. Those born without it are corrected. Jonah felt his jaw tighten. He said nothing. I was not born as you see me, the alien continued. I was altered, reshaped deliberately, repeatedly. Each deviation a lesson to others. His eyes flicked toward the observation glass, then away. The more disturbing the result, the more effective the warning. Jonah exhaled through his nose, slow and controlled. You were punished. No, the alien said. I volunteered. That caught Jonah off guard. Why? The alien's gaze steadied. Because someone had to endure it. Because those deemed acceptable would not survive the process. And because the alternative was extinction for my people. The faint glow beneath his scarred plates intensified, responding to his rising emotion. Jonah recognized the pattern now, not a weapon, but a system under strain. Your body is a containment structure, Jonah said quietly. Yes, the alien replied. A living one. He shifted, and for a brief moment Jonah saw past the distortions, glimpsing the underlying architecture of a form that might once have been elegant. My true self exists beneath this configuration, the alien said. Compressed. Restricted. If released without control, the energy would annihilate everything in proximity. Jonah absorbed that. and the galaxy decided you should carry it alone. They decided my suffering was preferable to their fear, the alien said. I agreed because someone had to. Jonah met his gaze. There was no pity in his eyes, only a deep, simmering anger held in check by discipline. You shouldn't have had to make that choice. The alien tilted his head. That is easy to say when one is not facing oblivion. Jonah didn't argue. He had made his own impossible choices once, and he knew better than to cheapen sacrifice with absolutes. They taught us that beings like you would recoil, the alien went on. That your kindness would be conditional, eroded by exposure. You have disproven that premise. Jonah shifted his weight, uneasy under the implication. I'm one person. One is enough, the alien said. It means the hypothesis was flawed. The station vibrated again, stronger this time. Jonah's console chimed insistently, but he ignored it, eyes fixed on the alien. If others learn what you are, Jonah said, they'll stop seeing you as a warning and start seeing you as a threat. They already do, the alien replied. This form was designed to inspire fear. What they do not know is why. He straightened, drawing himself to his full, uneven height. I am not meant to survive contact with your kind. I am meant to be reclaimed, terminated if necessary. Jonah's breath stilled. Then why tell me? Because you looked at me and saw endurance, not corruption, the alien said. Because if anyone can decide what happens next without flinching, it is you. Jonah finally tapped his console, scanning the incoming data. His expression hardened. You're right, he said. They're en route. The alien's eyes dimmed slightly. Then there is little time. Jonah stepped closer, lowering his voice. If your true form is released, controlled, not catastrophic, could it be stabilized? The alien studied him. With assistance. With trust. Jonah didn't hesitate. You have it. For the first time, the alien's composure cracked. Something like disbelief crossed his features. If this fails, he said, you will be destroyed alongside me. Jonah shrugged lightly. I've stood in worse places with less reason. The hum beneath the alien's skin rose, steady now, no longer erratic. The distorted plates along his body shifted, seams aligning in patterns Jonah hadn't noticed before. This was not a monster straining at its limits. It was a system responding to care. You are changing the variables, the alien said. Good, Jonah replied. The old one sucked. The lights flickered. Somewhere beyond the chamber, docking clamps engaged, metal on metal, final and irrevocable. The alien closed his eyes. When they arrive, he said, they will demand compliance. Jonah squared his shoulders. Then they'll have to ask. The alien opened his eyes again, and for the first time Jonah saw certainty there, bright and unhidden. Whatever happened next would not be quiet, and it would not be contained. But it would be honest. The docking impact reverberated through the station like a held breath finally released. Jonah felt it in his bones, a familiar prelude to confrontation. He stood beside the alien, close enough now that the low, steady hum beneath the distorted body no longer felt threatening, only contained. The observation glass cleared, transparency overriding privacy protocols. Shapes moved beyond it, tall, symmetrical figures wrapped in immaculate containment suits. Their posture radiated authority, so ingrained it no longer required force. Step away from the asset, a voice commanded, amplified and cold. Human, you are not authorized to interfere. Jonah didn't move. He's not an asset, he said. He's a patient. A pause followed, brief, but telling. Your classification systems are irrelevant, the voice replied. The construct will be secured. The alien straightened, plates shifting with a soft, controlled realignment. I will not comply, he said calmly. Termination would be inefficient at this stage. Jonah glanced at him. You don't have to do this alone. I am not, the alien answered, and there was no uncertainty left in his tone. The suits advanced. Energy fields shimmered to life, tuned to suppress rather than destroy. Jonah stepped forward, placing himself squarely between the incoming force and the alien. He did not raise a weapon. He simply stood. Human, the voice said again, sharper now. Your species' survival is contingent upon cooperation. Jonah smiled faintly. You should have led with that. He keyed his console, not to trigger an alarm, but to open a channel. The station's internal feeds spilled outward: medical scans, recorded conversations, unedited footage of the aliens' containment form stabilizing under care. No accusations, no commentary. Just truth, transmitted faster than it could be recalled. The reaction was immediate. The advancing suits faltered, their flawless formation breaking by a fraction. This data is classified, the voice snapped. It was, Jonah replied. Now it's context. The alien inhaled deeply. The glow beneath his altered body brightened, not violently, but coherently, aligning with the rhythms Jonah had helped establish. I will demonstrate, the alien said, but not as a weapon. With deliberate care, he loosened the internal constraints holding his true form in check. The distorted plates shifted, unfolding rather than breaking apart, revealing an inner structure of startling symmetry and precision. Energy radiated outward, not in a blast, but in a controlled field that pressed gently against the containment barriers and held. The suits recoiled despite themselves. This is what I was, the alien said, voice resonant and clear. And this is what I was made to carry. The field stabilized. The station did not rupture. Jonah exhaled, tension draining from his shoulders as he realized he had been holding his breath. You see? Jonah said quietly. No flinching. No catastrophe. Silence followed, heavy and uncertain. The authority behind the glass recalibrated, their certainty eroding under the weight of evidence. This changes projections, the voice admitted. It changes responsibility, Jonah corrected. The alien drew the energy back in, resealing the containment form with practiced ease. The monstrous silhouette returned, but it no longer carried the same meaning. Not here. Not anymore. You intended this, one of the figures said to the alien. You exposed yourself. Yes, the alien replied. Because concealment only preserved your comfort, not our survival. Jonah stepped aside then, not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. The choice was no longer his to block. It had been shared. The figures withdrew their suppression fields. This incident will be reviewed, the voice said, weaker now. Human involvement will be noted. Jonah shrugged. Write whatever you want. Just don't forget what you saw. The observation glass dimmed. The docking clamps disengaged, their presence retreating as abruptly as it had arrived. The station fell into an unfamiliar quiet. The alien turned to Jonah, posture easing for the first time since they had met. You did not protect me by force, he said. You protected the truth. Jonah leaned against the wall, fatigue finally catching up with him. Force is easy, he said. Understanding takes longer. The alien considered that. There'll be consequences. Jonah nodded. For us too. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched the alien's features. Then we are aligned. Beyond the station's viewport, stars burned on, indifferent and constant. Somewhere out there, assumptions were fracturing, slow and irreversible. Jonah looked at the being beside him, still scarred, still carrying more than anyone should, and felt a quiet certainty settle in his chest. Humanity had not changed the galaxy by conquest or superiority. They had simply refused to look away.